The next step is binding this to the UI for a fully working SMS activation process. The SMS activation process is practically done. The first step is in the Enter Mobile Number form, where we need to change the event handling on the floating action button. This code might produce a dialog. If we show it in the current form, it might go back to this form instead of Enter SMS verification digits form. By using this callback, we can make sure the next form is shown. Only Android supports intercepting SMSs, so this code will only run on that platform. In that case, we automatically validate against the string we get from the next SMS. If that works, we automatically skip ahead to the password form. Regardless of the above, we send an SMS message to the given phone number. Next, we need to validate the input in a case where SMS isn't validated automatically, or if the user rejected the permission on Android. We can do this in the Enter SMS verification digits form class by editing the isValid method. This pretty much does the SMS activation, but we'd also want the countdown functionality to work. If you recall the UI, there is a countdown label for resending the SMS. To implement that, we need to first define two new member variables and define two helper methods. The variables represent the countdown value in seconds for resending the SMS and the timer object, which we need to cancel once it elapses. The format method formats time in seconds as 2 digits for minutes and 2 digits for seconds. Next, we need to make the following changes to the constructor code. We schedule the timer to elapse every second and repeat on the current form. We update the text, which redraws automatically. Notice that it's also a good practice to revalidate normally, but since the string size would be roughly the same, this shouldn't be necessary. We cancel the timer so we don't keep sending the SMSs over again. Notice we don't cancel the timer in case of success. We don't need to. Since it's a UI timer, it's bound to the form, and once we leave the current form, it will no longer elapse. This sends us to the password entry form, where we now have two versions of the UI. We connect to the server to check if the user exists, and show an infinite progress UI over the previous form. If the user exists, we show a welcome back prompt. Otherwise, we enter a new password. We also need to change the code that handles the floating action button event to actually add or load the user. If the user exists, we call the login method and show the map on success. If the server returned an error on the login, we dispose the progress dialog and show the error message label we prepared before. We use revalidate as the error label size changed and will occupy more space. If the user didn't exist before, we create a new user object and add that user to the server, then show the map. If the operation is successful, the error handling code is pretty similar to the previous code.